The Sasanian Empire conquered Jerusalem after a brief siege in 614, during the Byzantine-Sasanian War of 602–628. After the Persian Shah Khosrau II appointed his general Shah-Baraz to conquer the Byzantine-controlled areas of the Near East. Following the victory in Antioch, Shah-Baraz conquered Caesarea Maritima, the administrative capital of the province. By this time the grand inner harbour had silted up and was useless. However, the Emperor Anastasius had reconstructed the outer harbour and Caesarea remained an important maritime city, providing the Persian Empire with access to the Mediterranean Sea. The Sasanian Persians were joined by Nehemiah ben Hushiel and Benjamin of Tiberias, who enlisted unarmed Jewish soldiers from Tiberias, Nazareth and the mountain cities of Galilee, and together with a band of Arabs and additional Jews from southern parts of the country they marched on Jerusalem. Some 20,000 Jewish rebels joined the war against the Byzantine Christians. Depending on the chronicler, figures of either 20,000 or 26,000 are given. The Persian army, reinforced by Jewish forces led by Nehemiah ben Hushiel and Benjamin of Tiberias, would capture Jerusalem without resistance. Background: Jews and Samaritans were persecuted frequently by the Byzantines, resulting in numerous revolts. Byzantine religious propaganda developed strong anti-Jewish elements. In several cases, Jews tried to help support the Sasanian advance. A pogrom in Antioch in 608 would lead to a Jewish revolt in 610 which was crushed. Jews also revolted in both Tyre and Acre in 610. The Jews of Tyre were massacred in reprisal. Unlike in earlier times when Jews had supported Christians in the fight against Shapur I, the Byzantines had now become viewed as oppressors. Following the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 CE, Jews were prohibited from entering the city. Constantine allowed Jews to enter for one day each year, during the holiday of Tisha B'Av. In 438 CE, the Empress Eudocia removed the ban on Jews entering the city. However, following violent Christian opposition, the ban was reinstated. The ban on settlement was maintained until the Arab conquest, except during the reign of the Emperor Julian, and from 614 to 617 under the Persians. Due to these circumstances, Jerusalem is thought to have had only a small Jewish population prior to the events of 614 revolt and its aftermath. Following the unopposed capture of Jerusalem, control of the city was handed to Nehemiah ben Hushiel and Benjamin of Tiberias. Nehemiah was then appointed the ruler of Jerusalem. He began making arrangements for the building of the Third Temple, and sorting out genealogies to establish a new high priesthood. After only a few months, a Christian revolt occurred. Nehemiah ben Hushiel and his council of 16 righteous were killed along with many other Jews, some throwing themselves off the city walls. Following the outburst of violence in Jerusalem, the surviving Jews fled to Shah-Baraz's encampment at Caesarea. Christians were able to briefly retake the city before the walls were breached by Shah-Baraz's forces, who lay siege to the city. According to Antiochus Strategos, the abbot Modestos set out to Jericho, where he mustered a force from the Byzantine troops which were garrisoned there. However, once the Byzantine troops caught sight of the overwhelming Persian army encamped outside the city walls, they fled, fearing a suicidal battle. Sources vary on how long the siege lasted. Depending on the source, it lasted 19, 20 or 21 days. According to Sabios, the siege resulted in a total Christian death toll of 17,000. 4,518 prisoners were massacred near Mamia Reservoir per Antiochus in reprisal for the Christian rebellion and pogrom of the Jews. Christian sources later exaggerated the extent of the massacre, claiming a death toll as high as 90,000. In addition, 35,000 or 37,000 people, including the patriarch Zacharias, are said to have been deported to Mesopotamia. The city is said to have been burned down. However, neither widespread burning nor destruction of churches have been found in the archaeological record. The search for the true cross is said to have involved the torture of clergymen. Once found, the true cross was carried off to Ctesiphon. It would later serve as a symbol of the victory over Persia and hope for victory over the Arabs. Modestus was appointed over the city. Damage was done to many Christian churches and other buildings. By the first half of 616, order had been restored in Jerusalem and Modestus had authorized the reoccupation of St. Sabas. Reconstruction on the following churches was underway: Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Golgotha, the Mother of Churches at Sion, and Chapel of the Ascension. Modestus' letter gives the impression that the reconstruction of these sites was already completed. However, this is unlikely to be the case. By 617 CE, the Persians had reversed their policy and sided with the Christians over the Jews, probably because of pressure from Mesopotamian Christians in Persia itself. However, it does not appear that Jews were violently expelled from Jerusalem, as Sabios thought. Instead, Modestus' letter and other sources seem to imply that further Jewish settlers were banned from settling in or around Jerusalem. A small synagogue on the Temple Mount was also demolished. Following the change in policy, the condition of the Mesopotamian deportees also improved. Sabios records that they were each resettled according to their prior trade. In 628, following the deposition of Khosrau II, Kavad II made peace with Heraclius, giving Palestine a prima and the true cross back to the Byzantines. The conquered city and the Holy Cross would remain in Sasanian hands until they were returned by Sharbaraz. Sharbaraz and his son Nitas, who converted to Christianity, would control Jerusalem until at least the late summer, early autumn of 629. On March 21, 630, Heraclius marched in triumph into Jerusalem with the true cross. Heraclius came as victor into the land of Israel, and the Jews of Tiberias and Nazareth, under the leadership of Benjamin of Tiberias, surrendered and asked for his protection. It is said that Benjamin even accompanied Heraclius on his voyage to Jerusalem, and Benjamin was persuaded to convert. Benjamin obtained a general pardon for himself and the Jews. He was baptized in Nablus in the house of Eustathius, an influential Christian. However, once Heraclius reached Jerusalem, he was persuaded to go back on his promise to Benjamin of Tiberias. According to Eutychius, the Christians' population and monks of Jerusalem convinced the emperor to break his word. Some modern scholars ascribe the story of the oath of Heraclius to the realm of legend, doubting that Heraclius ever made such a promise, instead ascribing this as a product of later apologists. In atonement for the violation of the emperor's oath to the Jews, the monks are said to have pledged themselves to a yearly fast, which is still observed by the Copts, called the Fast of Heraclius. Jews were expelled from Jerusalem and were not allowed to settle within a 3-mile radius. A general massacre of the Jewish population ensued.